Wembley Stadium, one of the most prestigious grounds in world football and venue this May for one of the biggest games of all, the Champions League final. Now, as the knockout stages for this year's tournament get underway, there's a particularly interesting clash coming up between Porto and Malaga. Way back in 2004, under the guidance of a young Jose Mourinho, Porto sprang one of the biggest surprises in European football when they lifted the Champions League trophy. This time around, though, they're going to be facing the revelations of this year's tournament, Malaga, the Spanish side in their first appearance in the Champions League, group winners ahead of AC Milan and undefeated so far. Right, well, I'm James Richardson, this is Paul McDonald, Peter Staunton, and we're ready to talk about Porto Malaga. Let's start off with a question from a reader, Sergio Cuentes, who says, I can't believe Malaga have reached this stage of the tournament. Against Porto, they have a good chance of making the quarter-finals. How far do you think they can go?
Malaga are the best debutants in Champions League history, and to be perfectly honest, it's a miracle they've got this far, given the off-field tribulations. Financial constraints have meant players like Santi Cazorla, Jose Rondon and Nacho Monreal have been forced to leave, and the club has to set up a sustainable financial model. I think it's down to the fact that they've such a good coach in the form of Manuel Pellegrini, who had his reputation tainted previously at Real Madrid, but unfairly so. He's built his team around Isco, one of the stars of the tournament so far. I think Malaga can only go from strength to strength in the competition from here. It's
not just the fact that they're debutants in the competition, it's the whole financial background with the club not paying players' wages for a while, now facing a ban from UEFA from participation in next year's European competitions.
Yeah, Malaga are refuting the ban at the moment, saying that all debts were paid, but it's certainly something that's hanging over the club, and it's something they're going to like to get sorted as soon as possible.
Well, despite all of that, they've been unbeaten so far in the tournament. Are Porto going to change that, do you think, Pete?
Over the course of two legs, I wouldn't be so sure, but I would expect Porto to have too much for Malaga at this stage of a competition. I think that Malaga's good run to this point will come to an end. I think they've run out of steam a little bit in the Champions League. They won their first three matches, of course, but they're winless since then in the competition, drawing three matches. And Porto, going to Porto is one of the toughest tasks for any European team. You know, they've won their 3 home games already there this season, beating the likes of Paris Saint-Germain. And even though they continually lose their players, lose their coaches, you know, they're a regional powerhouse, and they continue to punch relatively above their weight. You know, when you look at their resources compared to other clubs, they punch above their weight in the European competitions, obviously winning the Europa League in 2011 being the most recent example of that.
Well, Falcao, the star, very much back then. He's now made his way. Hulk's gone as well in the last transfer, well, back in the summer. How are they able to sustain this level of performance?
Well, it's their modus operandi, really. That's how they run the club. You know, Pinto da Costa is one of the toughest negotiators out there when it comes to transferring players out of Porto, and indeed managers. I think he got 15 million for Andre Villas-Boas when he went to Chelsea. And it's a matter of getting there first, usually to the South American market. And they tend to buy players almost before they're ready. So the likes of Danilo and the likes of James Rodriguez, when they transfer to Porto, they don't necessarily seem ready for European football, but they get the exposure and they get the experience, and then they gradually replace the first team players that are already there and become stars in their own rights themselves. So, like I said, you've got James Rodriguez and Jackson Martinez, who have stepped into the breach filled by Hulk and Falcao this season and continue to carry this team from strength to strength.
With the departures, though, will Malaga perhaps feel that this is a good draw for them in their first Champions League tournament?
Yeah, I think Malaga are in a situation where they have nothing to lose. No one expected them to get out of the groups. No one expects anything of them because of their financial troubles. So anything from here is a bonus. They have a group of players and a manager of good quality, and I think they could give Porto real trouble in this tie.
With all the departures they've had, how important was it for them to hang on to João Moutinho?
Crucially important. They've obviously bought out the rest of his contract now. That was to stave off interest in the January transfer window, which means that any profit that's made on Moutinho now will be retained wholly by the club. So I think it's probably a statement that Porto may be ready to sell Moutinho on in the summer market, but to have a good crack at the Champions League knockout stage is vitally important to hold on to Moutinho, who, in my opinion, is better than any midfielder in Europe, bar than what you'd find at Barcelona.
My word, praise indeed. All right, you've got Porto going through. Would you go along with that, Paul?
I think the way the draw is shaped up with the likes of Madrid playing Manchester United, Barcelona playing AC Milan, I think a lot of big guns are going to fall at this hurdle, and it opens up the draw for teams like Porto and Malaga. So whoever goes through this could potentially find themselves in a semi-final position, and I think Malaga have the quality, certainly in attacking positions, to really push on and have a real go at this competition.
All right. Well, we shall see when Malaga visit Porto on Tuesday. You can follow the action, of course, at goal.com. And if you have any further questions for our panel, just use the hashtag AskGoal.